Welcome back to the channel. If you love stories where the female lead doesn't just fight back, she fights smart, then buckle up, because today I've got the perfect story for you. Sparkles. Imagine waking up inside a novel, but not as the heroine. Instead, you're the disinherited eldest daughter, abandoned by your family and constantly targeted by a scheming illegitimate sister. But our girl isn't helpless. With system by her side, she starts flipping every trap, exposing every lie, and destroying every scheme thrown at her. One by one, the people who tried to ruin her begin to fall. And while she's busy outplaying everyone in the capital, she accidentally catches the attention and the heart of the most dangerous man in the empire. Power games, revenge, romance, and a heroine who refuses to lose. Let's begin the story. When Scarlett opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was a crystal chandelier. It hung above a pale blue ceiling, its facets catching the morning light and scattering tiny rainbows across the walls. The bed beneath her was enormous and impossibly soft, wrapped in sheets that smelled faintly of jasmine. For a long, quiet moment she simply lay there, watching the light move, letting the dull ache behind her temples slowly fade. Then the memories arrived, and they were not hers. She sat up slowly, pressing her fingers to her temples. Something had happened. Something strange and vast and completely beyond any framework she possessed for making sense of strange, vast things. She was in a body that was not her body. She was in a life that was not her life. She knew this the way a person knows they are dreaming, with a certainty that existed below thought, in the bones. A ring on her left middle finger caught the light. Plain silver, thin as a thread. She had not put it there. She stared at it for a moment. Then, following some instinct she couldn't have explained, she whispered, "System. Are you there?" A voice burst to life inside her head, bright, cheerful, entirely unbothered by the gravity of the situation, with the energy of a child who had been waiting impatiently for this exact moment. "Finally. You're awake, you adorable thing. I've been waiting forever, number 250. Scarlett felt a vein in her temple begin to throb. She breathed slowly. She was clearly a composed, dignified person. She could feel that much about herself, even amid all this strangeness. She would not lose her composure over a disembodied voice. She lasted approximately 4 seconds. "Who are you calling 250? You, obviously." The voice sounded delighted by her indignation. "Though I suppose technically your designation is host. Or you can call me baby. I'll also accept master if you're feeling formal." "Baby." Scarlett repeated the word flatly. "Your name is baby." "It is. And before you say anything rude, I'm your system. Your helper. Your guide through everything that is about to happen to you. So perhaps we could start over on a friendlier note." A pause, then primly, "If you call me 250 again, I will make your life considerably more difficult." Scarlett rubbed her eyes. "Fine. Baby. Tell me what's happened to me." A brief pause, the kind that precedes information that the speaker knows will be difficult to receive. "You've transmigrated," baby said. "Your soul has entered the body of a young woman named Scarlett Chin, the eldest legitimate daughter of the Chin family, one of the 3 most powerful families in the capital. I am your system companion. I'm here to help you navigate this life, protect you, and give you the tools you need to take control of your own fate." Another pause. "There's quite a lot you need to know. Do you want the full explanation or the summary?" "Summary first." "All right. You are 18 years old. Today is your coming-of-age ceremony. Your father, Ethan Chin, is about to introduce his illegitimate daughter Victoria at your birthday party. In the original course of events, this introduction destroys you, your inheritance, your reputation, your safety, and eventually your life. I am here so that does not happen." Scarlett was quiet for a moment, processing. "And the memories I'm receiving, the ones that don't feel like mine? Those belong to the original Scarlett. I've transferred them to you so you understand this world, this family, and what's at stake. I know it's overwhelming. But you're remarkable. I chose well." Baby's voice softened, just slightly. "This is your life now. And I promise I'll help you make it a good one." Scarlett sat with that for another moment. Then she swung her legs over the edge of the bed and stood. She had never been a person who spent long on things she couldn't change. Whatever had happened, however she had come to be here, she was here. This was real. The body was hers to inhabit, the life was hers to live, and the girl whose memories she carried deserved better than the ending the original story had written for her. Good, she said. Then let's begin. She went to the bathroom mirror and met herself for the first time. Skin like pale jade. Wide, dark eyes with a natural upward tilt at the outer corners, the kind poets called peach blossom eyes, set beneath delicately arched brows. Small nose, lips the color of a plum, a perfectly oval face framed by chestnut brown waves that fell to her waist. She stood 170 centimeters tall, slender and perfectly proportioned. She looked like something carved from porcelain or painted by someone with an agenda. She looked, in short, extraordinary. Baby, she said, studying the reflection with the careful attention she would give any new asset. Tell me everything about Victoria. And everything about the Qin family's assets, shares, and legal documents. Already compiling, Baby said cheerfully. Oh, this is going to be so fun. It's not going to be fun, Scarlett said. It's going to be thorough. A brief silence. Then Baby said, in a slightly different tone, host. The original Scarlett, she went through a great deal of pain in her 18 years. Alone and unacknowledged and still trying. I think you should know that before you go downstairs. Scarlett looked at her own reflection for a long moment. At the eyes that held, in their depths, a grief that did not belong to her, but that she could feel all the same, like a bruise left behind in borrowed skin. I know, she said quietly. I felt it when the memories came through. She touched the mirror lightly, as though the original girl might somehow feel it. From this moment on, this name is mine. And everything Victoria owes her, I'll collect it back. Every last piece. The smile that curved her lips was slow and entirely without warmth. Outside the window, the first guests were already arriving in the garden below. The show was about to begin. The nanny knocked on the bedroom door 30 minutes before the banquet was due to begin. Young Mississippi. The head of the family would like you to come down. Scarlett paused in the act of fastening her earring. She met her own eyes in the mirror. Today was her 18th birthday. The coming-of-age ceremony. The occasion on which, traditionally, the head of a great family personally escorts his heir down the grand staircase, an announcement to all of society that this is my child, this is my treasure, this is the future I am building. Her father had sent the nanny. Baby's voice appeared quietly in her mind. In the original version, she went running to him anyway. Hoping. Scarlett understood that hope. She felt its ghost in the original girl's memories, 18 years of reaching toward a father who gave his warmth elsewhere. 18 years of telling herself that surely, this time, she mattered enough. She won't have to hope anymore, Scarlett said softly. Then she stepped into her heels and walked to the door. The effect of her entrance was immediate and immensely satisfying. She had dressed deliberately. A fiery red evening gown, silk that caught light like a low flame, cut to showcase the elegant line of her collarbone and the pale perfection of her shoulders. A scattering of small pearls in her hair, simple against the elaborate styling of the other ladies present, because she needed no decoration. The face and the dress were architecture enough. Every head in the room turned. She felt the weight of their collective attention and wore it comfortably, the way a woman wears something she has always owned. Then she descended the stairs, took in the full picture below, her father, rigid and expectant, and, beside him a young woman in delicate white gauze who had very obviously been practicing her expression of gentle anxiety all afternoon, and made her choice. She walked to her father with measured steps and looked up at him with wide, peach blossom eyes. She allowed just a thread of genuine feeling to show, not performance, but the real echo of the original girl's hurt, which deserved at least this much acknowledgement. Father. She tilted her head slightly, the faintest pout on her lips. Today is my birthday. You didn't come to escort me yourself. A soft, deliberate pause. I'm unhappy. How will you make it up to me? The surrounding guests rippled with warmth. Several older women looked charmed. Even a few men softened. Ethan Sheen, who had prepared a speech that began with "This is your younger sister," found it lodged in his throat. Scarlett turned her eyes, wide and innocent, to the young woman in white standing at her father's elbow. "Father, who is this young lady? I don't believe we've been introduced." A perfectly measured beat. "She's quite beautiful. Should I know her?" The room's temperature shifted. The older women understood the question instantly. They had played this game themselves, in other parlors, decades ago. Victoria, who had clearly planned for a tearful reunion scene that would paint her as the wronged innocent, found herself suddenly off script. She recovered quickly. Her expression crumpled into wounded vulnerability, her eyes going soft with tears that arrived with suspicious punctuality. "Sister, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have come. Father asked me to, but I'm causing trouble, I'll just leave." "Mississippi." Scarlett's voice was not unkind. It was something considerably more precise than unkind, it was clear. "I don't believe I've said anything to warrant that expression. If I've upset you, I apologize sincerely. But I'm not certain what I did." She stepped back, one deliberate half-step, with a faint, undisguised grimace, as though the proximity to someone performing such obvious emotional theater was mildly uncomfortable. It landed exactly as intended. These were the women of capital society. They knew who Victoria's mother had been. They knew how the original Scarlett's mother had died. And they knew, with the unerring accuracy of people who had watched these games play out for generations, the difference between a woman who was cruel and a woman who simply refused to be manipulated. Their sympathies shifted quietly but unmistakably. Baby chimed in Scarlett's mind. Favorability with the social circle is rising. "Well done, host." Ethan, misreading the room as thoroughly as only a self-absorbed man can, chose this moment to press forward. He placed his hand on Victoria's shoulder and turned to address the gathered guests with the practiced warmth of a man who had been planning this announcement for weeks. "I'd like to introduce my second daughter, Victoria, who has recently returned to the family. I hope you'll all take good care of her." Then he added, almost as an afterthought, as though it were the smallest detail, that Victoria would be joining the family company at her eldest daughter's coming-of-age ceremony. The silence that followed was the particular kind that means everyone in the room understands exactly what has just been said and is carefully choosing not to say so aloud. Scarlett closed her eyes for 1 second. She felt the original girl's grief move through her old, deep, bone level, the specific pain of a child who has finally, inarguably, seen the truth she had been refusing to see for 18 years. She opened her eyes. Her voice, when she spoke, was very quiet. "Father." Just the one word. No drama, no accusation. She looked at him with a stillness that was somehow more damning than anger. "All right." She turned, walked to the raised platform at the front of the room, accepted a wine glass from a passing waiter, and lifted it to the assembled guests. "Thank you all for attending my coming-of-age ceremony. Please enjoy yourselves." The applause was genuine, and warm, and directed entirely at her. She descended the platform steps, chin raised, spine straight, heels clicking a steady beat on the marble, and stepped too close to the edge. Her heel found air. For one suspended, breathless moment she was falling. Then she was not. Strong arms caught her. A broad, warm chest pressed against her back. The fall simply stopped, as though it had never been planning to continue. Scarlett waited for the cold marble she had been expecting. When it did not come, she breathed carefully and opened her eyes. The face above her was, there was simply no other word for it, stunning. Strong, precise features. Dark eyes with an unusual depth to them, the irises threaded with something like gold. A jaw that could have been sculpted by someone with very strong opinions about aesthetics. Dark hair falling across a broad forehead in loose, slightly careless strands. He wore a silver-gray suit with the complete indifference of a man who has never needed clothes to announce his presence. He was looking at her as though he had just seen something unexpected, not unpleasant, just unexpected. The way a person looks when they turn a corner and find a view they weren't prepared for. Baby's voice appeared inside her head with the energy of someone who had been sitting on information and could no longer contain it. "Host, that is Alexander Tan. Male lead. Maximum danger level. His favorability toward you is already at. Later, Scarlett said internally, because the man was still holding her and she needed to concentrate. She shifted slightly, signaling without words that she could stand. He didn't put her down. He carried her, with complete ease and composure, to a nearby sofa and settled her onto it with the deliberateness of someone who has simply decided this is what he is going to do and does not particularly require anyone's input on the matter. Then he looked at her shoes. "Don't wear such high heels," he said. "They're not safe." Scarlett stared at him. This man, and she could tell from the way the entire room had gone silent, from the way even her father had frozen mid-sentence, from the way his secretary was doing something that looked suspiciously like suppressing a smile, was clearly someone of enormous consequence. And he had just caught her from a fall and followed it with a comment about footwear. "Thank you," she said, composing herself. "I'm perfectly fine." Something flickered behind his eyes, a brief flash of what might have been discomfort at himself. "Forgive me. I startled you." A pause. "My name is Alexander Tan." The ripple that moved through the room at those two words was immediate and visible. She watched it happen, the slow widening of eyes, the exchanged glances, the particular kind of collective held breath that meant everyone had just realized they were watching something they would be discussing for months. Because Alexander Tan did not, under any ordinary circumstances, carry people to sofas and apologize for startling them. Baby, no longer able to contain itself, 26 years old. Joined the military at 15. Lieutenant Colonel at 18. Major General at 22. Retired voluntarily, which was half the capital's gossip for an entire year, to found the Yushi Group. His grandfather chairs the Central Military Commission. His father is a general. He is, and I want to be precise about this, the single most powerful unattached man in this city. And he is currently looking at you like you personally invented something he didn't know he needed. Scarlett kept her expression perfectly neutral. "Thank you for attending today, Mr. Tan." "You're welcome." His voice was low, measured, and then, almost imperceptibly, something warmed in it. "I came because someone smiled." Earlier, on the stairs. Before she could fully process that remarkable statement, her father arrived with Victoria, practically vibrating with the excitement of a man who has just spotted the most valuable piece on the board. "Mr. Tan, what an honor. This is my younger daughter, Victoria. Victoria, come say hello." Victoria stepped forward with practiced, delicate grace, her cheeks faintly flushed. "Brother Alexander," she said softly. "Hello." The warmth that had briefly entered Alexander's voice disappeared entirely. He looked at Victoria with the mild, remote attention one might direct at something that had walked into the wrong room. "I don't know you," he said. "Please don't address me as if we're acquainted." The shock on Victoria's face was genuine and complete. She had planned for this moment for years, had rehearsed it, prepared for it, built entire strategies around it. And it had just been dismissed in 7 words. Scarlett kept her expression composed and allowed herself, internally, one small moment of pure satisfaction. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Ethan moved to comfort her. Alexander, having apparently concluded that the interaction was over, turned back to Scarlett. She touched his sleeve lightly, drawing his attention, and felt him go very still at even that small contact. "Thank you," she said, quietly enough that it was only for him. "For being here." And for a small gesture toward the sofa, both of those. He looked at her hand, then at her face. Something settled in his expression, a tension releasing that she hadn't noticed was there until it was gone. "No need to thank me," he said. And then, in a voice that was slightly lower than before, "Smile more. I like it." He did not seem to notice how unusual that was to say to someone he had met approximately 5 minutes ago. Or perhaps he noticed and simply didn't consider it unusual for him specifically. "Then I will," she said simply. "I'll smile every day." Something quick and unguarded crossed his face, a flicker of warmth, almost surprised at itself. Victoria, who had been watching this from 2 feet away with escalating fury, said loudly, "You've always told me you disliked spoiled young ladies. How can you possibly like someone like her?" The silence that followed had a particular quality. Alexander turned his gaze to Victoria with the slow, unhurried patience of a man who has never been threatened by very much. "I don't know you," he said again, precisely as he had said it the first time. "And I'll ask you not to tell me what I like." Scarlett thought, the story has already changed. She also thought, I don't mind at all. That night, after the guests had left, Scarlett sat at the window of her room and let Baby debrief her properly. "His favorability toward you is sitting at 71, Baby reported, with the energy of someone reading excellent financial results. That's on a scale of 100. First meeting. This is, to be clear, unprecedented for Alexander Tan, whose documented favorability toward any woman prior to today was approximately -15. What does 71 mean exactly? The scale goes: strangers, acquaintances, friends, interested, trust, liking, love at first sight. Baby paused. He's currently at love at first sight. Scarlett looked out at the darkened garden for a long moment. And Victoria? -20. She's already beginning to turn dangerous. Host, be careful. I know. Scarlett turned from the window. She pulled out the documents Baby had quietly flagged in the original girl's memories: her grandfather's will, the share transfer agreements, the notarized inheritance records that Victoria and Ethan had been planning to quietly eliminate. She spread them on the desk. "Baby, I need Samuel, grandfather's personal lawyer. Can you get me his number?" "Already done. Sending to your phone now." Scarlett picked up her phone, looked at the documents, thought of the original girl who had held these same papers and never understood their weight until it was too late. "Thank you, grandfather," she said quietly, to no one and everyone. Then she dialed. The next morning she arrived at the Cheen Group headquarters 1 hour early, dressed in a red power suit. Behind her walked Samuel, 50-something, square-jawed, carrying the particular bearing of a man who has spent his life in the service of integrity and takes it seriously. Kevin, Alexander's personal secretary, who had apparently been there since 6 in the morning at his employer's instruction, met them at the entrance. He looked like a man who was already having opinions about his workday. Beside the conference room's existing furniture sat a new leather armchair, black, carved Nanmu wood armrests, cedar-scented, that had clearly been delivered by a team of people in dark suits who were now conspicuously absent. "Mr. Tan thought you might appreciate having a proper seat," Kevin said, in the careful tone of someone translating his employer's considerably more direct actual words. Baby said in her ear. The boss's actual words were, "Since that old man won't give her one, we'll provide one." He was quite emphatic about it. Scarlett sat down, accepted the tea that had been prepared, and found it excellent. "Tell Mr. Tan," she said to Kevin, "that I know a good Thai restaurant. He should come to lunch." Kevin typed something on his phone. Received an extremely prompt response. Permitted himself a very small smile. "He says he'll be there." She turned to the room, the full board of directors, every department head, every shareholder Ethan had assembled to present a united front, and set her sunglasses on the table. "Good morning. This will be brief." She opened her briefcase, removed the documents, and slid them across the table. "These are my grandfather's share transfer records, my mother's inheritance agreements, and the notarized will. Combined, they make me the controlling shareholder of this company. That is simply the situation." She folded her hands. "You have 2 choices. Stay and build something excellent with me, or leave with 3 months additional severance as thanks for your past service to the Cheen family." She looked at Ethan last. His face was the color of uncooked dough. "As for you, father, retirement can be peaceful if you let it." Victoria sat beside him with her head lowered, hands clenched in her lap, nails digging into her own flesh. She said nothing, but her eyes, when they briefly met Scarlett's across the table, held something hot and dark and very, very still. Baby murmured, "She's planning something." "Host, watch your back." The general manager stood up first. He bowed. "I support Miss Scarlett." Within 10 minutes, 2/3 of the room had followed. The restaurant Alexander chose was quiet and warm, fragrant with lemongrass and coconut, and something sweet Scarlett couldn't immediately identify. He was already seated when she arrived, jacket on the chair beside him, dark hair slightly less perfect than it had been at the banquet. He looked up when she walked in, and his expression did the thing it had been doing since they first met, something very still and very intent, and just slightly at a loss for what to do with itself. Scarlett sat across from him. Picked up the menu. The meeting went well, he asked. Very well. She scanned the page. Though I suspect my father will make things difficult before he makes them easy. He's made things difficult for long enough. She looked up. He was looking at the menu, not at her, but something in his tone was not neutral. They ordered. Scarlett chose the pomelo shrimp salad, the pineapple fried rice, and something with coconut. Alexander ordered the sea bream. Then, without drawing attention to it, he quietly transferred all the shrimp from his plate to her bowl when he noticed her eyeing it. She noticed. She said nothing about it, which was its own form of acknowledgement. They talked easily, and with a naturalness that surprised her. He asked about the company. She asked about the military, and he answered with the careful brevity of someone who isn't often asked about himself with genuine curiosity, and isn't quite certain how much space he's allowed to take up. She listened more than she spoke, which was unusual for her. Kevin mentioned you've been reading something, she said eventually. He looked mortified, which means it's either deeply embarrassing or curiously sensible. Alexander's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. A reference text, he said, with the dignity of a man who is not going to say more than this if he can avoid it. On what subject? A pause. Relationship cultivation. Scarlett looked at him. Kevin recommended it, he added, which made things considerably worse. What was it called? He looked like he very much did not want to answer. The wife-chasing manual, he said. And there were others. 36 Strategies of Love. I can't recall all the titles. Baby burst into laughter inside her head. She firmly suppressed any external reaction. Brother Alexander, she said, with great composure. I suggest we simply let things develop naturally. No manuals. He considered this with the gravity he appeared to bring to most things. Then, is that what you'd prefer? Very much. Something eased in his expression. Relief, she thought, genuine relief. As though the books had been an anxious project undertaken out of uncertainty, rather than something he'd actually enjoyed. All right, he said. The afternoon dissolved in a way afternoons rarely did. They walked after lunch. He showed her a stretch of undeveloped land at the city's edge that he had been considering, and they talked about it in the long golden light of late afternoon. She laughed 3 times, which she noticed. He noticed that she noticed. When he dropped her home that evening, she opened the car door, then paused. Kevin told me you didn't sleep last night, she said, without turning around. If I hear that again tomorrow, you'll hear about it from me. A brief silence. Then, trying very hard to be neutral, understood. She turned back to the open window. The lamplight caught the angles of his face at a particular slant, and something in her chest did something she didn't immediately have language for. She reached through the window and pinched his cheek lightly, more surprise than pressure, and felt him go absolutely still beneath her fingers. Good night, Brother Alexander. She walked to her door without looking back. Behind her she heard an engine start with slightly more acceleration than the traffic conditions required. Baby materialized on her shoulder the moment the door closed. Favorability, 85, it reported, with the satisfaction of someone announcing very good earnings. Go draw circles in the corner, Scarlett told it and went to get ready for bed. Baby heard the phone call at 2 a.m. Victoria, in the dark of her room, dialing a number that had no business being in her contacts, a young man named Nathan, well connected to organizations that operated in the shadows of the city's power structure. His voice was pleasant. His conscience was not a notable feature of his personality. Baby flagged it immediately. Scarlett was already awake, she had barely slept, and she listened to the full recording with the stillness of someone absorbing information rather than reacting to it. She's asked him to arrange something, Baby said carefully. She didn't say the word. But host, she means. I know what she means. Scarlett set down her phone. How did you get this? I have capabilities beyond standard system parameters, Baby said, with a certain primness that suggested it was not going to elaborate. The point is, they are planning to act within the next 48 hours. A car. A staged accident. Scarlett looked at the ceiling for a long moment. Then she sat up, turned on the light, and picked up her pen. Then we'll be ready, she said. Tell me everything. She was ready. She had arranged everything with the precision of someone who does not leave margins for error. The timing, the position, the countermeasures, all of it mapped, prepared, in place. What she had not fully accounted for was Alexander. He had been driving her home from a morning meeting. They were 3 blocks from her building when the car came too fast, aimed too specifically, from an angle she had prepared for. She was already moving to the left, exactly as planned. Alexander moved right, into the car's path, between her and the impact. She heard the sound. She heard something break. She felt the grip of his hand on her arm, warm and very strong, and then suddenly not there. He was on the ground. There was glass from the car window. There was blood at his temple. The city continued around them, indifferent and ordinary. Scarlett knelt beside him. She pressed her hand to the side of his face, to the pulse at his throat, there, steady, but he wasn't moving. Baby. Her voice was very controlled. Tell me what I need to do. Call the ambulance. I'm already monitoring his vitals. Scarlett, baby hesitated, and it almost never hesitated. He's going to be all right. But it will take time. She called the ambulance. She stayed on the ground beside him with her hand on his, and she did not let herself think about anything except the next necessary action. But somewhere, under the composure, something had cracked open that she was not yet ready to look at. She did not leave the hospital. She held the press conference from the hospital, still in the clothes she'd been wearing when the accident happened. Kevin had found her a clean jacket from somewhere, she didn't ask where. She stood in front of the cameras with the composed face of someone who will not allow herself to fall apart in a public place, pressed play on the recording baby had preserved, and let Victoria's own voice do the work. Victoria's calculated scheming, her explicit conversations with Nathan, her unguarded final rant, every word of it, clear and damning, filling the speakers. As the head of the Chin family and Alexander's fiancé, Scarlett said into the cameras, and she said it without planning to, the words simply arriving fully formed on her tongue, I am announcing that Victoria Chin is blacklisted by both families, effective immediately. This matter is in the hands of the law. She walked back to the hospital. In Alexander's room, the monitors were steady. The medical team had explained, broken ribs, surgically cleared. Head injury from the fall, no blood clot, but nerve paralysis. Everything physically reparable. The rest depended on the patient's will. Scarlett sat in the chair beside his bed. She did not particularly believe in sitting still when there were things to be done, but there were no more things to be done tonight, and so she sat. Baby settled quietly on her shoulder, not speaking, for once. Just there. Baby, she said eventually. Yes. Is he going to be all right? A pause. His body is healing well. Everything I can scan looks good. Another pause. The part one can't scan, the part that's up to him, that I can't promise. But Scarlett. Baby's voice was unusually gentle. I have given him something from my reserves. A strengthening. It's the most I'm able to do. The rest is his choice. Scarlett looked at Alexander's face, at the particular unguarded quality of a person who is unconscious, the softness that appears in people who spend their waking hours being formidable. He looked younger somehow, and very quiet. Then he'll choose to come back, she said. He doesn't strike me as someone who makes a promise and then doesn't keep it. The days accumulated. 6, 10, 20. She ran the company. She handled Nathan, using the Tan family's connections and her own considerable stubbornness to ensure he was found and properly delivered to the authorities. She sat in on Victoria's preliminary legal proceedings with the same composed attention she brought to board meetings. She managed, organized, and dismantled, piece by piece, every scheme that had been built against the girl whose name she carried. And every evening, she came back to this room. She talked to him. She was aware it was unusual behavior for a composed, professional woman to sit beside an unconscious man and narrate her day. She did it anyway. The general manager approved the third-quarter budget today, she told him one evening, her chin resting on her folded arms on the edge of his bed. Kevin has been invaluable, but he has started referring to me as madam when he thinks I'm not listening, which I find both presumptuous and, frankly, not entirely unwelcome." She paused. "If you were awake, you'd have something very controlled and indirect to say about that. I'd probably have to spend 10 minutes figuring out what you actually meant." Baby, floating near the window, favorability is still registering as active, by the way. Even while he's unconscious. His subconscious clearly has strong opinions about you. "That's either reassuring or alarming," Scarlett said. "Both, probably." On the 30th day, she sat beside him in the late afternoon light and said, more quietly than she usually spoke to him, "I told you I would smile every day. I've been doing my best. But it's harder without you being there to see it." A pause. "I want to be very clear with you, Alexander Tan. I did not come this far, fight this hard, and build something worth keeping, just to have the most inconvenient person I've ever met refuse to wake up." Her voice wavered, just slightly, at the edges. "I'm giving you 1 more month. If you're not awake in 1 more month, I will be very upset with you. And I'll hold it over you for years." A soft sound from the monitors. She looked up. His right index finger, moved against the sheet. She was on her feet before the thought had fully formed. "Baby?" I see it, Scarlett pressed the call button. His eyelids moved. Slowly. Then, with the effortful deliberateness of someone forcing their way through something heavy, they opened. Dark eyes. Gold-threaded, familiar, focusing. Finding her. Scarlett had not cried in 30 days. She did not cry now. But she also did not move, because she was not entirely certain her legs would hold her if she tried. "Hi," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she had any right to expect. His lips moved. The sound was hoarse from weeks of disuse, barely above a whisper. "Scarlett." She crossed the distance between the door and the bed in about 2 steps and sat beside him and took his hand, and she let herself feel, for the first time in 30 days, the full weight of how frightened she had been. "You took your time," she said. A slow exhale. "I heard you," he said. "All of it. While I was in the dark. I could hear your voice. All of it. Most of it." A pause that cost him visible effort. "You said you'd be upset with me. I meant it." Something moved in his eyes, the faintest possible echo of the expression she had come to think of as his real smile, the one that lived under all the formidable composure. "I know," he said. "That's why I woke up." Alexander was discharged on a Tuesday. On the way home, they stopped at the Civil Affairs Bureau. He had been carrying the relevant paperwork in his jacket pocket. She discovered this when he reached for it without any hunting, as though it had been there for a while, and he had simply been waiting for the right moment. She looked at him. "How long have you had those?" "Since the 2nd week of your visits," he said. She stared at him for another moment. Then she took the forms from his hand, and they went inside. They drove home married. The wedding, some months later, was everything Scarlett had said she wanted when he asked her, understated, elegant, without the kind of extravagance that compensates for something missing. He designed the venue himself. Ivory and green bamboo. Candlelight. Flowers that smelled faintly of rain. Her grandfather Theodore walked her to the altar with his bright eyes wet, his old hands holding hers between them, and said to Alexander with a severity that was entirely love, "Take care of her." Alexander bowed 90 degrees. "Grandfather," he said. "I will." He held her hand through the entire ceremony. She could feel him watching her during the vows with the particular attention of someone who still cannot quite believe they've been allowed to have something. At the kiss, he closed his eyes. She discovered, standing there, that a man who had spent his entire adult life being composed and controlled kissed with nothing held back at all, and she was slightly embarrassed about how completely undone she was by this, at her own wedding, in front of everyone. "Baby," writing invisible on her shoulder, said very quietly, 100. Scarlett, for once, had nothing to say back. That night, while Alexander slept beside her, Scarlett lay awake for a while in the dark. "Baby," she said softly. Half asleep itself, which should not have been possible for a system, but somehow was. "Did I do right by her?" The original Scarlett. A long pause. Then, She was alone for 18 years, baby said. And then you came, and you said her name like it mattered, and you kept every promise you made to her. Yes, host. You did right by her. Scarlett looked up at the ceiling of the room that was now hers, that was now, entirely and without reservation, her room, her life, her world. Beside her, Alexander shifted in his sleep and reached, without waking, for her hand. She let him take it. Good, she said. Good. Victoria's trial was brief and thorough. Intentional assault. Conspiracy. Defamation. Attempted homicide. The charges were laid out one by one with the patient precision of a legal team that had been given extraordinary documentation that included, among other things, baby's audio recordings, recovered communications, and a complete paper trail of every scheme Victoria had run since the day she returned to the Cheen family. Scarlett sat in the plaintiff's seat and said almost nothing. She had said everything that needed to be said already, in public, on camera, in front of the city. There was nothing left to perform here. When the verdict was announced, life imprisonment, suspended for 2 years, she stood, nodded to her legal team, and walked out into a cold, clear afternoon. She stood on the courthouse steps and turned her face up toward the sky. Baby, she said. Here. It's done. It's done, baby confirmed. A pause. Then, gently, how do you feel? Scarlett thought about that for a moment. About the original girl's 18 years. About everything that had been taken and returned and rebuilt. About the weight of a name she had carried for less than a year, but had come to mean more to her than she had words for. Ready, she said. For whatever comes next. Epilogue. Cherry blossoms. Many years later, more than 60, if you counted them all, there was a cherry blossom tree in the garden behind the house. Scarlett lay beneath it, her white hair spread across the green grass, watching the pink petals drift on the afternoon air. Beside her lay Alexander, silver-haired, familiar, his face carrying 60 years of living without having lost any of its particular character. Their children had grown and scattered and came back on holidays that were loud and wonderful and over too quickly. Their grandchildren sent photographs and arrived with noise and left behind a particular kind of quiet that felt like fullness rather than absence. Baby had been quieter in recent years. Not gone, never gone, but settled, present in the way of something that has seen its work mostly done and is content to simply accompany. Baby, Scarlett said softly. Still here, baby said, from somewhere close. Have we done well? A long, warm pause. You have done beautifully, baby said. Both of you. Scarlett smiled. Beside her, Alexander's hand found hers in the grass, their fingers intertwining the way they had learned to do all those years ago and never quite unlearn it. Brother Alexander, she said. Are you happy? He turned his head to look at her. The gold in his eyes, which she had never once stopped noticing, in 60 years of looking, caught the filtered light through the blossoms. I have been happy, he said, every day since I caught you falling off a platform in a red dress and told you your heels were too high. She laughed, a real laugh, full and unguarded, the kind she had learned from him that it was safe to have. You were insufferable that night. I was terrified, he said. I had just seen the most extraordinary thing and I didn't know what to do with it. And now? He raised her hand and pressed his lips to her knuckles, the same gesture he had first made, decades ago, without thinking, and which had never lost its particular quality. Now, he said, I know exactly what to do with it. I hold on to it. That's all. I just hold on. The petals fell around them, soft and unhurried, pink against the green. Scarlett closed her eyes, felt the warmth of the sun, the weight of his hand, the quiet presence of baby, faithful and fond, nearby. She thought, I came into this world with nothing but a silver ring and a cheerful voice in my head. She thought, I leave it with everything. Baby, she said, one last time. I know, baby said softly. I'll stay with you. She smiled and let the afternoon take her gently, without hurry, into the warm quiet. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next story.